What would you do if the man who abandoned you pregnant on Christmas Eve reappeared as the deadliest mafia boss in New York? Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing where my incredible viewers are tuning in from. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do it now because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this story. Sloane Calloway stood outside the iron gates of the Rizzo estate, her recording device tucked inside her coat pocket, her breath forming clouds in the December air. She'd been a crime journalist for 8 years, built a reputation exposing corruption and violence that most people pretended didn't exist. But this assignment felt different. Wrong. Like walking into a trap she couldn't see yet. The gates opened with a mechanical groan, and a man in a black suit gestured for her to follow. Her editor had been insistent. Get the interview with Domenico Rizzo, the most feared name in organized crime, or forget about the promotion. Rizzo controlled everything from the docks to the politicians, his empire built on blood and silence. No one had ever gotten close enough to ask him a single question, until now. Sloane's heels clicked against the stone pathway as she approached the mansion. Her stomach twisted, but she forced her shoulders back. She'd faced dangerous men before. This was just another story, another monster to unmask. The door opened before she could knock, and then she saw him. 10 years vanished in a heartbeat, the sharp jawline, the dark eyes that used to look at her like she was the only thing that mattered. The same hands that had once held hers were now rumored to have ordered executions without hesitation. Domenico Rizzo stood in the doorway, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than her annual rent. His expression was unreadable, cold, carved from stone. He didn't recognize her, not even a flicker. But she recognized him. Every devastating inch. The man who had left her sobbing on Christmas Eve with nothing but a note that said, "I can't do this." The man who had disappeared while she was carrying his child. The man who had destroyed her belief in love, in trust, in anything good. "Miss Calloway," he said, his voice deeper now, rougher. "Come in." Her legs moved on instinct, though every nerve in her body screamed to run. He stepped aside, and she entered a world of wealth and danger she'd only written about from the outside. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview, Mr. Rizzo," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. He closed the door behind them, the sound echoing like a prison gate. "I don't usually speak to journalists, but your editor made a compelling case." His gaze swept over her, clinical, detached. "You look familiar. Have we met?" Sloane's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd changed her last name after he left. Calloway was her mother's maiden name. She'd cut her hair, hardened herself into someone new, someone who couldn't be abandoned again. "No," she lied. "We haven't." He studied her for a moment longer, then gestured toward a study lined with books and shadows. "Let's begin." As she followed him, one thought burned through her mind. He had no idea he had a daughter, a 9-year-old girl with his eyes and Sloane's determination. And if he ever found out, it could destroy everything she'd spent a decade building. But she was here now, in the lion's den, and there was no turning back. Sloane sat across from Domenico in a leather chair that probably cost more than her car. The study smelled of aged whiskey and old wood, the kind of room where powerful men made decisions that changed lives without a second thought. She pulled out her notebook, her fingers steady even though her pulse was chaos. "Before we start, Mr. Rizzo, I need to understand who you are beyond the headlines," she said, clicking her pen. Professional, detached. Like he was just another subject and not the ghost that haunted every Christmas for the past decade. Domenico leaned back, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Who I am depends on who's asking. To some, I'm a businessman. To others, a criminal. What do you see, Miss Calloway?" The way he said her name sent ice down her spine. She'd heard that voice whisper promises in the dark, heard it laugh at her terrible jokes, heard it say he loved her. Now it was a weapon, sharp and controlled. "I see a man who built an empire in the shadows," she replied, meeting his gaze. "I want to know how and why." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My father was a dock worker in Brooklyn, broke his back for 30 years, and died with nothing. I decided I wouldn't end up like him. I took what the world refused to give me. There was truth in his words, but also carefully constructed walls. Sloane recognized the pattern. He was revealing just enough to seem honest while hiding everything that mattered. She'd interviewed killers before. She knew the dance. And the violence, she pressed, the bodies that turn up in the river, the families who lose sons and fathers. Consequences, he said simply. In my world, loyalty is currency. Betrayal is suicide. I don't apologize for surviving. Her jaw tightened. This was the man she'd loved, the one who'd promised her forever. He'd become something cold, something unreachable. Or maybe he'd always been this, and she'd been too young and stupid to see it. Do you have family, Mr. Rizzo? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Something flickered across his face, so quick she almost missed it. Pain, maybe, or regret. No, family makes you weak. It gives your enemies something to target. Liar. He'd had her. He'd had the chance at a child. He'd chosen to run instead. Sloane's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her mother, who was watching her daughter tonight. Lucia wants to know, when you're coming home, she misses you. Lucia, her beautiful girl with dark curls and eyes that mirrored the man sitting 3 feet away. The daughter who asked about her father every Christmas, and Sloane had to lie and say he was gone. Not dead, just gone. You disagree, Domenico observed, watching her expression shift. I think family is the only thing that makes us human, Sloane said quietly. Without it, we're just monsters pretending to have purpose. He stood abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the estate grounds. His shoulders were tense beneath the expensive suit. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not, she said, standing as well. But I'd like to understand. That's why I'm here. He turned, and for just a second, she saw the boy she'd loved. The one who'd held her during thunderstorms and talked about building a life together. Then the mask slid back into place. This interview is over for today, he said. Come back tomorrow, same time. Sloane blinked. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, Miss Calloway. I don't give my story to just anyone. If you want the truth, you'll have to earn it. She gathered her things, her mind racing. This was either the opportunity of her career or the worst mistake of her life. As she walked toward the door, his voice stopped her. Miss Calloway, you seem familiar. Are you sure we haven't met? Her hand froze on the doorknob. I'm sure. Strange, he murmured. I never forget a face. Sloane left before he could see the fear in her eyes. Sloane barely slept. She lay in her small apartment staring at the ceiling, memories she'd buried clawing their way back to the surface. Christmas Eve, 10 years ago. The tiny apartment they'd shared in Queens. The positive pregnancy test she'd planned to surprise him with. The note on the kitchen table, I can't do this. Don't look for me. She'd been 23, scared, alone. She'd carried Lucia by herself, worked 2 jobs while pregnant, built a life from nothing, and now fate had thrown him back into her path like some cruel joke. Mommy, Lucia's voice drifted from the doorway. Her daughter stood there in pajamas covered in stars, her dark hair messy from sleep. Sloane sat up, forcing a smile. Hey baby, why are you up? Bad dream. Lucia climbed into bed beside her, curling against Sloane's side. I dreamed you didn't come home. Her heart cracked. I'm always coming home to you. Always. Tell me about my dad, Lucia whispered. It was a question she asked too often lately, and Sloane never knew how to answer. He wasn't ready to be a father, she said carefully. But that doesn't mean you're not loved. You're the most loved person in the world. Lucia was quiet for a moment. Do you think he ever thinks about me? Sloane closed her eyes. I don't know, sweetheart. He doesn't even know you exist, she thought. And if he finds out, I don't know what he'll do. The next evening, Sloane returned to the Rizzo estate. This time, Domenico met her in a different room, a conservatory filled with winter plants and soft lighting. He'd shed the suit jacket, his white shirt rolled up to his elbows. He looked more human this way, more dangerous. Wine, he offered, holding up a bottle that probably cost more than her monthly rent. I'm working, she declined. So am I. He poured 2 glasses anyway, sliding one across the table. You asked me yesterday why I do what I do. The truth is more complicated than you think. Sloane activated her recorder. I'm listening. He drank, his eyes never leaving hers. 10 years ago, I was nobody. Just another kid with too much ambition and not enough sense. I thought I could have a normal life. Love, family, all of it. His voice turned bitter. I was wrong. Her breath caught. Was he talking about her? About them? What changed? She asked, her voice barely steady. I got involved with the wrong people. Owed money I couldn't pay. They gave me a choice. Work for them, or watch everyone I cared about die. He set down the glass. So I worked, and I was good at it. Too good. I climbed the ranks, learned the game, and eventually took over. But by then, I'd lost everything that mattered. Sloane's hands clenched in her lap. You could have asked for help. From who? His laugh was sharp. There was no one. I made sure of that. I burned every bridge to keep them safe. Them, she pressed. Who are you talking about? Domenico's jaw tightened. He stood, pacing like a caged animal. It doesn't matter. They're gone now. I made my choice, and I live with it. Sloane stood too, anger rising in her chest. That's a coward's answer. You ran instead of fighting. You abandoned. Careful, Miss Calloway. His voice dropped to something lethal. You're a guest here. Don't forget that. They stared at each other, the air electric with tension and 10 years of unspoken pain. Then Sloane saw it, the flicker of recognition in his eyes, the way his gaze traced her features like he was solving a puzzle. Sloane, he whispered, her first name falling from his lips like a prayer. Sloane Morgan. Her blood turned to ice. He remembered. The name hung between them like a blade. Sloane's throat tightened, her carefully constructed walls crumbling. She'd spent 10 years hiding, rebuilding herself into someone new, and he'd shattered it in 2 seconds. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice betrayed her. Domenico moved closer, his eyes scanning her face with terrifying precision. You changed your hair, your last name, but your eyes? He stopped inches away. I'd know those eyes anywhere. Why are you here, Sloane? For the story, she shot back, lifting her chin. Nothing else. Liar. The word was soft, almost tender. You hate me. I can see it. So why walk into my house pretending to be someone else? Because you destroyed me, she wanted to scream. Because you left me pregnant and alone on the worst night of my life. Because our daughter asks about you and I have to lie. You don't get to ask me questions, she said instead. This interview is over. She grabbed her bag, but his hand caught her wrist, not rough, but firm enough to stop her. The touch sent electricity through her skin, memories flooding back. His hands on her face, his lips against her neck, the promises he'd made. Let go, she whispered. Not until you tell me why you're really here. His voice cracked, the mask slipping. I looked for you after I left. I came back 2 years later, but you were gone. No forwarding address, no trace. I thought... He stopped himself. You thought what? Sloane jerked her hand free. That I'd wait around for the man who abandoned me. I rebuilt my life without you, Domenico. I didn't need you then, and I don't need you now. Then why did you take this assignment? His question cut through her defenses. Any journalist in New York would kill for this interview, but you could have said no. Yet you're here. She wanted to deny it, but he was right. She could have refused, should have. But some sick part of her had needed to see him, to confirm that he was truly the monster everyone said he was, that leaving her had been the inevitable result of who he'd always been. Except now, looking at the pain in his eyes, she wasn't sure anymore. I have a daughter, she said suddenly, the words escaping before she could stop them. Not the truth, not yet, but close enough to hurt him. She's 9 years old, and every Christmas she asks me why her father doesn't love her. So I came here to remind myself why I tell her he's not worth knowing. Domenico flinched like she'd struck him. Sloane. Don't. She backed toward the door. You made your choice a decade ago. Now live with it. She left before he could respond, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She'd said too much, revealed too much, but his face, the devastation written across it, would haunt her. The next 3 days were torture. Sloane tried to focus on other assignments, but her editor kept pushing. Get back to Rizzo. Finish the story. Meanwhile, her phone buzzed constantly with unknown numbers. He was looking for her. Then Lucia got sick. A fever that spiked to 103 and wouldn't break. Sloane rushed her to the emergency room, her hands shaking as nurses took her daughter behind sterile white curtains. She sat in the waiting area, alone, praying to a god she wasn't sure existed. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Sloane, Domenico's voice was rough. I need to see you. I'm at the hospital, she said absently, too exhausted to lie. My daughter. Which hospital? Why does it? Which? Hospital, she told him. Hung up. 30 minutes later, he walked through the emergency room doors like he owned the place, which, knowing his connections, he probably did. He spotted her immediately, his expression unreadable. What are you doing here? Sloane asked. Standing. You said your daughter was sick. He glanced toward the curtained area. Is she okay? The doctors are running tests. It's probably just a virus, but... Her voice broke. She's all I have. Domenico's jaw worked. How old did you say she was? 9. She'll be 10 in March. She watched the calculation happen in his eyes. The math was simple. 10 years since he left. 9 years plus 9 months. Sloane, his voice was barely a whisper. Is she mine? Before she could answer, a doctor emerged. Miss Calloway, your daughter is asking for you. Sloane moved toward the curtain, but Domenico followed. She should have stopped him, should have lied. But she was tired of running. They stepped through the curtain together, and Lucia looked up from the hospital bed. Her dark eyes, his eyes, widening as she saw the stranger beside her mother. Mommy, who's that? She asked weakly. Domenico stared at the little girl, his face draining of color. The resemblance was undeniable. The eyes, the shape of her face, the dark curls. That's... Sloane's voice failed her. I'm Domenico, he said softly, kneeling beside the bed. I'm a friend of your mom's. Lucia studied him with the sharp intelligence she'd inherited from both of them. You look sad. His breath hitched. Maybe a little. It's okay, Lucia said, reaching out to pat his hand. Mommy says being sad is just how we know we care about things. Domenico's eyes glistened. He looked up at Sloane, and in that moment, everything shifted. The anger, the betrayal, the decade of pain between them. We need to talk, he said. They sat in a private room Domenico somehow secured within minutes. Lucia was stable, sleeping peacefully with an IV in her small arm. A nurse Sloane didn't recognize stood guard outside. One of his people, clearly. You kept her from me. His voice was quiet, but the fury underneath was volcanic. For 9 years. Sloane's hands clenched. You left me. You don't get to act betrayed. I left to protect you. The words exploded out of him. Angelo Corsetti owned me, Sloane. I owed him $200,000 from my father's gambling debts. He said if I didn't work for him, he'd kill you. So I left. I disappeared so you'd be safe. The room tilted. You're lying. I'm not. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through old photos until he found one. A newspaper clipping from 10 years ago. Woman found dead in apparent home invasion. The victim's name was Elena Moretti. That was Corsetti's accountant's girlfriend, Domenico said, his voice hollow. She tried to run with him. Corsetti made an example of her, tortured her for 3 days before killing her. He sent me photos, told me that's what would happen to you if I didn't disappear from your life completely. Sloane's stomach churned. So you just left? Without explaining? If I'd told you the truth, you would have tried to help, tried to run with me, and they would have found you. His eyes met hers. I couldn't let that happen. So I made you hate me, made it easier for you to move on. Easier? Her laugh was bitter. I was pregnant and terrified. I had to drop out of school, work double shifts while carrying our child. I built a life from nothing while you... She stopped, realization dawning. You took over Corsetti's empire. I killed him 3 years after I left you, Domenico said flatly. Worked my way up, earned his trust, then put a bullet in his head. Everything he owned became mine. I thought... His voice cracked. I thought once he was dead, I could come back. Find you, explain, but you'd vanished. I changed my name, changed everything. I didn't want to be the girl who got abandoned anymore. Domenico stood, pacing the small room. If I'd known about Lucia, what, you would have come back, played father while running a criminal empire? Sloane's anger flared again. She deserves better than that. She deserves to know her father. His hand slammed against the wall, making Sloane jump. He caught himself breathing hard. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for a second chance. But that little girl in there is my daughter, and I won't lose her. You don't get to decide that. Neither do you, not anymore. His gaze hardened. I've spent 10 years building power, Sloane. I can give her everything, safety, education, a future. Blood money, she spat. I won't let you corrupt her. And I won't let you keep her from me. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Terror shot through her. She'd seen what he was capable of, read the reports of his ruthlessness. If he wanted custody, he had the resources to bury her. But then she saw it. The slight shake in his hands, the way his breath caught. He was terrified too. Not of her, but of losing another chance at the family he'd sacrificed everything to protect. I need time, she said finally, to figure out how to tell her, how to navigate this. How much time? I don't know. A week? A month? You have 3 days. His tone left no room for negotiation. After that, I'm telling her myself. 3 days? Domenico, you can't just... A knock interrupted them. The nurse poked her head in. Mr. Rizzo, there's a situation. His expression shifted instantly, back to the cold Mafia boss. What kind of situation? Marco Vitelli's men were spotted near the estate. They're looking for you. Sloane's blood ran cold at the fear that flashed across Domenico's face. Who's Marco Vitelli? My enemy, he said simply. And if he finds out about you and Lucia? He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now because the next part is going to blow your mind. Drop a comment if you think Sloane should tell Lucia the truth or keep protecting her from Domenico's world. The door burst open. 3 men in suits entered, guns drawn. Not Domenico's men. Their eyes landed on Sloane, then flicked to the room where Lucia slept. Well, well, the lead man said, smiling coldly. Domenico Rizzo has a family. Marco will be very interested to hear this. Domenico stepped in front of Sloane, his body a shield. Touch them, and you're dead, the man laughed. You're outnumbered, Rizzo, and from what I hear, you've gone soft. Everything happened at once. Domenico moved with lethal precision, disarming the first man before Sloane could blink. Gunfire erupted, silenced, but still deafening in the small space. She dove for Lucia's room, throwing herself over her daughter's bed as chaos exploded behind her. When the silence returned, Domenico stood over 3 bodies, blood on his hands and murder in his eyes. We're leaving, he said. Now. Sloane clutched Lucia against her chest as Domenico's SUV tore through the New York streets. Her daughter was awake now, confused and terrified. Her fever-flushed face pressed into Sloane's shoulder. 2 of Domenico's men sat in the front, guns visible, scanning every car that passed. Where are we going? Sloane demanded, her voice shaking. Somewhere safe. Domenico's jaw was clenched, his knuckles white on the door handle. Blood stained his shirt, not his own. Marco Vitelli won't stop until he finds you, both of you. This is your fault, the words tore out of her. If you'd just stayed away. If I'd stayed away, you'd be dead right now. His eyes met hers, dark and furious. Those men weren't there for me. They followed you from your apartment this morning. They've been watching you for days. The revelation hit like a punch. Why? Because someone talked. Someone in my organization told Vitelli I was distracted, spending time with a journalist. He did his research. Domenico's voice turned lethal. And now he knows my weakness. Lucia whimpered. Mommy, I'm scared. Sloane's heart shattered. I know, baby, I know, it's going to be okay. But she didn't know if that was true anymore. They arrived at a compound outside the city. High walls, armed guards, security that would make a prison jealous. Domenico ushered them inside a sprawling house that felt more like a fortress. Sloane carried Lucia to a bedroom, laying her down on a bed that was too big, too expensive, too wrong. I want to go home, Lucia whispered, tears streaming down her face. Soon, Sloane lied, smoothing her daughter's hair. Just rest now. She waited until Lucia's eyes closed before stepping back into the hallway. Domenico stood there, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders in Italian. When he saw her, he ended the call. "She okay?" "No." Sloane's voice was flat. "She's traumatized. Because of you." "Because of me, she's alive," he countered. "Vitelli would have taken her, used her against me. You have no idea what men like him are capable of." "And whose fault is that?" She stepped closer, fury overriding fear. "You built this world. You chose violence and power over everything else. Now we're paying for your choices." "I chose to survive," his shout echoed through the empty hallway. "I chose to not end up like my father, broken and worthless. I chose to become someone who couldn't be touched. And look how well that worked out." Her laugh was hollow. "You're more vulnerable than ever, because now you care about something other than yourself." The truth of it hung between them. Domenico's expression crumbled, the mask he wore slipping completely. "I never stopped caring about you, Sloane. Not for a single day." "Don't." She held up a hand. "Don't make this about us. There is no us. There's just a daughter who deserves better than both of us." She turned to walk away, but his next words stopped her cold. "I'm sending you away. Tomorrow morning. New identities, offshore accounts, protection in Europe. You and Lucia will disappear." Sloane spun around. "What?" "It's the only way to keep you safe. Marco won't stop hunting you, not while I'm alive. But if you vanish, if I make it look like I had nothing to do with it, he'll lose interest eventually." "You're sending us away? Just like that?" "I don't have a choice." His voice broke. "I just found out I have a daughter, and now I have to lose her to keep her alive. So yes, Sloane, I'm sending you away." The pain in his eyes was real, devastating, but Sloane couldn't afford to care, not when Lucia's life hung in the balance. "When do we leave?" 6 a.m., private jet. My men will escort you to the airfield." She nodded, numb. "Fine." That night, Sloane lay beside Lucia in the oversized bed, listening to her daughter's soft breathing. Everything she'd built, her career, her life in New York, her identity, was gone. They'd be ghosts by morning, strangers in a foreign country with new names and no past. A soft knock made her tense. Domenico opened the door carefully, his silhouette filling the frame. "Can I see her?" he whispered. Just for a minute, Sloane wanted to say no. Wanted to protect Lucia from the complication of knowing him, but she saw the desperation in his face and couldn't deny him this one thing. 1 minute, she agreed, slipping out of bed. Domenico approached Lucia like she was made of glass. He knelt beside the bed, his hand hovering over her dark curls, before finally, gently, touching them. "She's beautiful," he breathed. "She has your smile." "And your stubbornness," Sloane added quietly. He looked up at her, tears glistening in his eyes. "I'm sorry for everything, for leaving you, for not being there, for—" His voice broke. "For not being the man you deserved. It's too late for apologies." "I know." He stood, memorizing Lucia's face like he'd never see it again. "But I need you to know, I would have stayed. If I'd known about her, I would have found another way. I would have burned the whole world down before leaving my child." Sloane believed him. "God help her," she did. "You need to go," she said softly. He nodded, moving toward the door, but he paused at the threshold. "If anything happens to me, if Vitelli wins, there's a safety deposit box at Chase Manhattan, box 447. The key is taped under the second drawer of my desk. Everything you and Lucia need is in there. Accounts, property deeds, instructions. Nothing's going to happen to you." His smile was sad. "We both know that's not true." Then he was gone, and Sloane was alone with the wreckage of everything they could have been. At 5:47 a.m., gunfire shattered the silence. Sloane jolted awake, her heart hammering. Lucia screamed. Shouts erupted from somewhere in the compound, followed by more shots. Rapid, close, deadly. The door burst open, but it wasn't Domenico. It was Marco Vitelli, flanked by armed men, his smile cold as winter. "Hello, Miss Calloway," he said smoothly. "Let's talk about Domenico Rizzo." Sloane pushed Lucia behind her, her body a shield against the monster in the doorway. Marco Vitelli looked like a businessman, tailored suit, expensive watch, polished shoes. but his eyes were dead. Shark eyes. "Get away from us," Sloane said, her voice steadier than she felt. Marco laughed. "Brave. I like that. But bravery doesn't stop bullets, Miss Calloway." He gestured, and one of his men grabbed Lucia, yanking her away from Sloane. "No!" Sloane lunged. But another man caught her, twisting her arm behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder. "Mommy!" Lucia's scream tore through the room. "Don't hurt her," Sloane begged, all pride evaporating. "Please, she's just a child." "She's Domenico Rizzo's child," Marco corrected, "which makes her very valuable." He approached Lucia, tilting her chin up with one finger. "Such a pretty thing, shame about her father." "Where is he?" Sloane demanded. "What did you do?" "Domenico is currently indisposed. My men are handling him as we speak." Marco's smile widened. "But don't worry, I won't kill him. Not yet. First, I want him to watch everything he cares about disappear." Sloane's mind raced. She needed a plan, needed to buy time. "You want revenge? Fine. Take it out on me. Let my daughter go." Touching, but no. Marco pulled out his phone, snapping a photo of Lucia's terrified face. "This goes to Domenico," along with a message. "Surrender his empire, or I start removing his daughter's fingers. 1 per hour." Rage exploded through Sloane. She drove her elbow back into the man holding her, feeling his nose crunch. He released her with a howl. She grabbed a lamp from the nightstand, swinging it at Marco's head. He dodged, but it bought her a second. "Run, Lucia!" Her daughter bolted for the door. One of Marco's men moved to intercept, and then the window exploded inward. Domenico came through the glass like an avenging angel, blood-soaked and furious. He moved with lethal precision, snapping the neck of the man nearest Lucia before the body even hit the ground. His gun fired twice. Both of Marco's men dropped. Marco grabbed Sloane, pressing a knife to her throat. "Stop, or she dies." Domenico froze, his gun trained on Marco's head. Blood dripped from a wound on his temple, his shirt shredded from whatever fight he'd survived downstairs. But his hands were steady. "Let her go, Marco. Drop the gun first." Not happening. The knife pressed harder. Sloane felt the blade bite into her skin, felt warm blood trickle down her neck. Lucia sobbed somewhere behind Domenico, and Sloane wanted to scream at her to run, to hide, to be anywhere but here. "I'll kill her," Marco promised. "Right in front of your daughter. Is that what you want, Rizzo? Another person you couldn't save." Something shifted in Domenico's eyes. A calculation, a decision. "You're right," he said quietly. He lowered the gun. "You win." "Domenico, no," Sloane started. He ignored her. "Let them go. Take me instead. You want revenge? You've got it. But they walk out of here alive." Marco considered this. "Why would I accept that deal when I can have all 3 of you?" "Because I'm the only one who knows where Corsetti hid the offshore accounts. $30 million, Marco. Take me alive, and I'll tell you where it is. Kill me, and that money disappears forever." Lies. Sloane knew it. But Marco's greed flickered across his face. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "You don't. But are you willing to risk $30 million to find out?" The knife at Sloane's throat eased slightly. Marco was considering it. Then Lucia screamed, "Daddy, watch out!" Everything happened in a heartbeat. Another of Marco's men appeared in the doorway, gun raised. Domenico spun, firing. The man dropped, but Marco's knife hand jerked. Sloane felt the blade slice deeper. Pain erupted across her throat. She gasped, choking. Domenico's gun swung back toward Marco. No, the shot was deafening. Marco's head snapped back, a hole appearing between his eyes. He collapsed, releasing Sloane. She crumpled, her hand pressed to her bleeding throat. "Sloane," Domenico caught her before she hit the ground. His hands pressed over hers, applying pressure. "Stay with me. Don't you dare die on me." "Lucia," she choked out. "Get Lucia." "I'm here, Mommy." Her daughter's face appeared, tear-streaked and terrified. "Please don't leave me," Domenico's voice cracked. "Call an ambulance, now." He looked down at Sloane, and she saw raw fear in his eyes. "You're going to be okay. You have to be okay." The room was spinning, Sloane's vision blurred, but she heard Lucia sobbing, felt Domenico's hands keeping pressure on the wound, felt his lips against her forehead. "I love you," he whispered. "I never stopped. Please, Sloane, Stay. Darkness pulled at her, but she fought it. For Lucia, for the daughter who needed her mother, for the man who'd just saved their lives. Tell her, Sloane managed, her voice barely a rasp. Tell Lucia. You're her father. You're going to tell her yourself, Domenico insisted. When you wake up, we'll tell her together. Sirens wailed in the distance, voices shouted. Hands lifted her onto a stretcher. Lucia's cries faded as darkness finally claimed her. But before it did, she heard Domenico's voice one last time. I've got them. I've got you both. I promise. And for the first time in 10 years, Sloane believed him. Sloane woke to the steady beep of monitors and the smell of antiseptic. Her throat burned, bandaged and aching. She tried to speak, but only a rasp emerged. Don't talk. Domenico's voice came from beside her bed. He looked wrecked, unshaven, exhausted, still wearing the blood-stained clothes from the attack. The doctors said you need to rest your vocal cords. The knife missed the major arteries, but it was close. She turned her head, searching. Where was... Lucia's fine, he said quickly, reading her panic. She's with my Aunt Maria in the waiting room. I didn't want her to see you like this until you were awake. Relief flooded through her. She reached for his hand, squeezing weakly. He gripped back, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. You saved her life. When you attacked Marco, you gave me the opening I needed. You were incredible. Sloane shook her head slightly. He was the one who'd crashed through a window to save them, who'd killed 4 men without hesitation, who'd been willing to trade his life for theirs. Vitelli's entire operation is finished, Domenico continued, his voice hardening. I made sure of it. His men, his territory, his money, gone. No one will ever threaten you or Lucia again. She wanted to ask how, wanted to know what violence he'd unleashed in the past 48 hours. But maybe it was better not to know. A soft knock interrupted them. A woman in her 60s entered. Warm eyes, kind face, worry etched into every line. She carried Lucia's hand in hers. She's been asking for you nonstop, the woman said gently. She had Domenico's eyes, his aunt clearly. Mommy, Lucia broke free, rushing to the bedside. Her small hands clutched Sloane's arm. You're awake. The doctors said you'd wake up, but I was scared you wouldn't, and... Sloane lifted a hand to her daughter's cheek, wiping away tears. She mouthed, I'm okay. She can't talk yet, Piccola, Domenico said softly to Lucia. But she can hear you. Lucia nodded, sniffling. Then she looked between Sloane and Domenico, her sharp mind clearly working through everything that had happened. That man called you Daddy, she said to Domenico. I called you Daddy. Are you? The room fell silent. Domenico's face went pale. His Aunt Maria quietly excused herself, sensing the moment's weight. Sloane met Domenico's eyes. This was it, the truth they could no longer hide. She nodded slightly. Domenico knelt beside the bed so he was eye level with Lucia. Yes, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your father. Lucia's eyes widened. Really? Really? But where were you? Why didn't I know? Her voice cracked. Did you not want me? No. The word came out fierce. Lucia, I didn't know you existed. Your mother and I, we were separated before she knew she was pregnant. And by the time I found out just a few days ago, He stopped, searching for words a 9-year-old could understand. I made mistakes, big ones. I hurt your mother, and I missed 9 years of your life, because I thought leaving was the only way to keep you both safe. From bad men like the one who hurt Mommy? Domenico's jaw clenched. Yes, from men like that. Lucia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, are there going to be more bad men? No, Domenico said firmly. I promise you, Lucia. No one will ever hurt you or your mother again. I'll make sure of it. How? He hesitated. How did you explain to a child that you'd eliminated every threat through violence? That you'd called in every favor, mobilized your entire organization, and painted the city red to ensure their safety? I have people who help me, he said carefully. People who will protect our family. Our family, Lucia repeated softly. She looked at Sloane. Is he really my dad? Sloane nodded, tears streaming down her face. Lucia turned back to Domenico. Okay. Okay? Okay, you can be my dad. But you have to promise me something. Domenico's breath caught. Anything. You have to stay. You can't leave like before. Even if it's scary, even if there are bad men, you have to stay. His composure shattered. Tears spilled down his cheeks as he pulled Lucia into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I promise. I swear on my life, Lucia. I will never leave you again. Sloane watched them, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. This wasn't the reunion she'd imagined. It was messier, born from trauma and violence, but it was real. And watching Domenico hold their daughter, seeing the pure love and desperation in his eyes, she understood something she'd refused to accept for 10 years. He'd never stopped being the man she'd loved. He'd just become someone else to survive. And maybe, just maybe, he could find his way back. Over the next week, Sloane healed. The wound on her throat faded to an angry red line that doctors said would scar but wouldn't impair her voice. Domenico never left her side, except to handle business he refused to discuss. Lucia adjusted with the resilience of children, asking questions about her father and slowly building a relationship with him. But Sloane knew the real test was coming, the conversation they'd been avoiding. It happened on a cold December afternoon. Lucia was with Maria, learning to make pasta. Sloane and Domenico sat in the compound's library, the weight of unspoken words between them. What happens now? Sloane asked, her voice still raspy but functional. Domenico stared into the fireplace. That depends on you. On me? I want to be in Lucia's life, permanently, but I understand if you can't forgive me. If you want to take her and disappear, I won't stop you. I'll make sure you have everything you need. Money, protection, a fresh start. You just let us go, if it's what you want. His eyes met hers. I spent 10 years making choices for you. I won't do that again. This is your decision. Sloane studied him. The exhaustion in his face, the scars, old and new, the way he looked at Lucia like she was his entire world. I don't trust you, she said honestly. You hurt me in ways I'm still recovering from. He flinched but nodded. I know. But Lucia deserves to know her father, and despite everything, despite the violence and the blood on your hands, she paused. You saved us. You were willing to die for us. I'd do it again without hesitation. I know. She took a breath. So here's what's going to happen. You get supervised visits with Lucia. You don't involve her in your business, ever. And you and I, we start over. Not as lovers, not even as friends. As co-parents figuring out how to give our daughter the life she deserves. And if I want more than that someday? His voice was quiet. If I want a chance to earn back what we had? Sloane's heart stuttered. Did she want that? Could she ever trust him again? Then you'll have to prove you're worth the risk, she said finally. One day at a time. A slow smile spread across his face, the first real one she'd seen in a decade. I can do that. Good, she stood. Now come on, your daughter is waiting to show you her pasta-making skills. And if you make her cry, supervised visits become phone calls only, he laughed, following her toward the kitchen where their daughter's laughter echoed. And for the first time since Christmas Eve 10 years ago, Sloane felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. 6 months later, Sloane stood in the doorway of Lucia's new bedroom, watching Domenico help their daughter hang fairy lights. The room was in a brownstone in Brooklyn, far from the compound, far from the darkness of his world, a place that was theirs. Higher, Daddy. The corner needs to be higher, Lucia directed from her position on the bed. I'm 6'2". How much higher can I go? Domenico complained, but he was smiling. He'd smiled more in the past 6 months than Sloane had ever seen. He'd kept his promises, all of them. Supervised visits had become shared custody. Business stayed separate from family. And slowly, carefully, he'd proven he meant every word he'd said in that hospital room. Okay, how's this? He secured the final strand. Lucia squealed. Perfect. Turn them on. The lights twinkled to life, casting warm stars across the ceiling. Lucia clapped, delighted. Domenico climbed down from the chair, ruffling her hair. All right, kiddo. Bedtime. School tomorrow. 5 more minutes? Lucia tried the negotiation tactic she'd learned from watching them discuss parenting schedules. Nice try, Sloane said, entering the room. Brush your teeth. We'll come tuck you in." Lucia groaned but complied, dragging herself to the bathroom. Once she was out of earshot, Domenico turned to Sloane. "She's happy," he said quietly. "Really happy." "She is." Sloane leaned against the doorframe. "You're good with her." "I'm trying." He moved closer. "How about you? Are you happy?" The question hung between them. 6 months of co-parenting, 6 months of rebuilding trust, 6 months of carefully maintained boundaries that Sloane felt crumbling more each day. "I'm getting there," she admitted. "That's something." His hand brushed hers, tentative, asking permission. "Sloane, I know we said we'd take this slow, that we're just co-parents, but I need you to know I'm still in love with you. I never stopped." Her breath caught. "Domenico." "You don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I just needed you to hear it. Because every day I spend with you and Lucia, I fall harder. And I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I destroyed what we had. But if there's even the smallest possibility..." Sloane kissed him. It was impulsive, reckless. Everything she'd sworn she wouldn't do. But his lips against hers felt like coming home after a decade of being lost. He froze for a heartbeat, then kissed her back, tender and desperate and full of 10 years of longing. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "Does this mean," he started. "It means I'm tired of pretending I don't still feel something for you," Sloane said. "It means I'm terrified and scarred and still not sure this is smart. But Lucia deserves to see what love looks like when it's real. Complicated and messy and worth fighting for." Domenico's eyes glistened. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth that fight." "You better," she smiled. "Because our daughter is watching from the bathroom door and is about to explode with excitement." They turned. Sure enough, Lucia stood there, toothbrush in hand, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "Are you guys together now? Like, together?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. Sloane laughed. "Maybe. We're figuring it out." Finally, Lucia launched herself at them both. They caught her, the three of them tangling in a hug that felt like the family they were always meant to be. Later, after Lucia was asleep, Sloane and Domenico sat on the brownstone's front steps. The December air was cold but not unbearable. Christmas lights decorated the neighboring houses. "Last Christmas, I was alone," Sloane mused. Lucia asked me again about her father, and I told her the same lie I always did. That he was gone and wasn't coming back. And now? Now she's upstairs dreaming about the father who showed up to her school play last week and embarrassed her by cheering too loud. Sloane shook her head, smiling. Who would have thought? Domenico took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I meant what I said in there, about spending my life proving myself. I know the road ahead won't be easy. I'm still cleaning up the mess of who I was. But I'm getting out, Sloane. Selling off the businesses, going legitimate. For Lucia, for you, for us." "That's dangerous," she said carefully. "Men like you don't just walk away. Men like me don't usually have a reason to." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But I do now. 2 reasons, actually, and they're worth more than any empire." Sloane leaned her head on his shoulder. "Tell me we're going to make it. That this isn't just a beautiful disaster waiting to implode." "I can't promise perfection," Domenico said honestly. "But I can promise I'll fight for this every single day. That I'll protect you both with everything I have. That I'll never run again." "That's enough," she whispered. "For now, that's enough." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood settle into night. Somewhere inside, their daughter slept peacefully, surrounded by fairy lights and the knowledge that she was loved by both her parents. It wasn't the story Sloane had written for herself 10 years ago. It was messier. Scarred by trauma and separation, built on a foundation of pain and redemption, but it was theirs. And as Domenico pressed a kiss to her temple, and she felt his heart beat steady against her, Sloane realized something profound. Sometimes the love stories that break you are the ones that teach you how strong you really are. And sometimes, just sometimes, the man who destroyed your heart is the only one who knows how to put it back together. "Merry early Christmas," Domenico murmured. Sloane smiled. "Merry Christmas, Domenico." This time, she wasn't spending it alone. This time, she had everything she'd ever wanted, even if it had taken a decade and nearly dying to get here. This time, they were home. "Before you go," Drop a comment telling me what you thought of Sloane and Domenico's story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button so you never miss another emotional journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.